day, Internet. This is DTNS Live for Tuesday, February 4th, 2025. From Studio Animal House, I'm Sarah Lane.
In Los Angeles, I'm Tom Merritt.
In the Atlanta area, I'm Nica Montford.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
Daily Tech News Show Live is made possible by you listening right now. Big, warm, platonic hug to you, Miranda Janelle, that Charlie Dude, Justin Zellers, and everybody welcome brand new patrons. Got a bunch of them here. Carmine, Junia, Z80, Alejandro, Jerry, and Barry.
Yay! Oh. So cool to have you all along for the ride, and welcome to DTNS Live. This is the show where we discuss the tech news to help us all understand it a little bit better together. How's everyone doing? How are you doing, Nica Montford? I heard that there's been quite the cold snap on the eastern part of the U.S. lately.
Right. It was maybe 2 weeks ago. I was just on this show and I was lamenting the snow while we were recording. I was looking at my window and I saw the snow falling. Today, it is 75, sunny, and gorgeous.
Really?
So we're
about
back.
that?
Where'd all that
Atlanta's
snow go?
back, baby.
I don't know. I don't care. Keep it wherever it is.
Tom and Roger, I know you're in LA with me, but as I'm looking out my window, it is sunny. It's not. I don't think it's 75. It's
it's chillier today for us. 61.
63, which
Okay,
is what my
yeah.
Apple Watch says to me. But I'll take it.
Yeah.
I will take it.
We're getting more rain later,
Yes.
like tomorrow and the day after. So
Which we need.
Glad for you guys.
I put out my gutter
Bringing out the
extensions for
galoshes.
rain.
Blah blah blah. Grumble,
weather. We
could talk about weather all day, but we also have news to talk about. So let's get to that.
Apple introduced a new app called Invites. Take that, Evite. You've been Sherlocked. It is designed to help iCloud Plus users, you got to pay, plan events like birthday parties, graduations, vacations, baby showers. You don't have to pay to be invited, though. If you get invited, you don't even have to use an Apple device. The app integrates features from iPhone, iCloud, and Apple Music, so you can have like a playlist for your event, just meaning to simplify event planning and enhance shared experiences.
This got a lot of attention today. I was like, all right. I mean, iCloud Plus. I'm an iCloud Plus user, but like, okay,
Yeah,
So
I
it
don't know
goes.
either. It's like, it's nice.
Yeah, maybe, if you're in the right demo. Data from Counterpoint Research shows global smartphone revenue increased by 5% year over year, with an all-time high average selling price of $356 for a smartphone. That's, again, the putting them all into consideration. Global smartphone shipments also rose by 4%, the first annual increase since 2021. That was fueled by wider 5G adoption, better camera features, faster processors, and making upgrades more attractive to customers. Apple led the market with the iPhone 15, the 15 Pro Max, and the 15 Pro, securing the top 3 spots on the bestsellers list.
I don't know how significant this is today, but if you think of it as a signal of, this is how things started with TikTok, it might seem more significant. Australia's government now prohibits installing DeepSeek on all of its devices. The Secretary of the Department of Home Affairs issued a mandatory direction for all government entities to prevent the use or installation of DeepSeek products and to remove any existing instances from Australian government systems and devices.
Opera launched a new browser called Opera Air on Tuesday, including features that promote mental well-being and also mindfulness, such as giving yourself a break, a reminder for that, breathing exercises, soundscapes, by oral beats for better focus. Just basically stuff that's like, if white noise works for me, I'm going to put that on, I'm going to work better. That kind of stuff. Opera also says it wants to create a browser that functions as a utility tool, but is also a stress and focus management system, since people utilize browsers for a significant portion of their online work.
Oh, hey, look, David just gave us a big old super chat because Tom asked so nicely yesterday, but I couldn't get the chat out before the end of the stream. Oh, David, thank you so much. That's very nice. We are not done with the quick hits, though, David. Fujifilm's new ultra short throw projector features a rotating articulated lens that can pivot 90 degrees and rotate 360 degrees. The point being, it's not like the Roomba where it's going to like go around, drive around and pick up your socks. You move it so that it can project images on the wall, the ceiling, the floor without you having to move the actual projector. So you can install it in one place. Has 6,000 lumens of brightness and 4K resolution, offers lots of installation options, making it ideal not only for home theater, but you could also use it in like a museum or a commercial space. So if you want to change where the projection is, say in a museum to a different area. No pricing or availability yet, but expect to know more after the Integrated Systems Europe 2025 trade show coming up soon.
All right, everybody. If you used to use Twitterific, or at least was familiar with the name Twitterific as a third-party app using, the Twitter API, it was made by a company called the Iconfactory, and they are back with something a little bit new. A new app from the Iconfactory called Tapestry pulls together feeds from places like Bluesky, Mastodon, any news RSS feed that you might follow, YouTube. Basically, it's an RSS feed aggregator, but it's trying to make it sort of friendly in a new way. Puts everything into one timeline. Project Tapestry initially launched as a Kickstarter project just over a year ago. The app is now live for iOS and iPadOS users, so, it's iOS for now, but has some subscription options to remove ads, unlock custom timelines, mute certain content, customize themes. Subscriptions start at $2 a month, $20 a year, one-time purchase of $80. Now you might say, whoa, $80, what in the heck? I'm using it on the free version of the app, so I think it actually works really well, at least, at the beginning without having to, pay a dime. But I feel like this does harken back to like the early days of, Flipboard on the iPad. The whole idea of a third-party company saying, all right, well, we've got the fire hose. Let's make this something where you can bring in a bunch of sources that you would go to, one at a time otherwise, and make it a fun experience for you. This has been done quite a few times, and I think Iconfactory is kind of bringing back this idea, particularly because a lot of people, ex-users still there, but a lot of people are trying to kind of diversify their social media experiences. And so this is a way to do that and yet be able to see everything at once.
I feel like this is one of those things everybody says they want, but then fewer people actually use. Do you remember the one that the former Instagram guys tried to go with? It was very news oriented. This is news oriented, but also a little bit wider than that. That one ended up shutting down. It reminds me of, phones that are very focus oriented. I just want a simple phone. Like everyone says they want
Artifact.
that.
That's what it was
Artifact.
called.
That was the
Oh,
name of the app. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Everyone said they wanted Artifact, but then they couldn't get enough users. Now, the nice thing here is the Iconfactory isn't trying to like satisfy a bunch of venture capital backers, to make millions of dollars. So they can survive with a smaller audience if they find enthusiasts for this. And I think they have a good shot at that. But I look at this and I'm like, it's pretty. It works great. I don't consume my news this way. I like it. Well, I guess I kind of do in Feedly. This is a little more wide-ranging than that, though. And I don't put podcasts or YouTube into Feedly, but apparently some people want that. And if you see your social network stuff in here, you're going to have to go out to the social network app, at least now, to do responding or liking and stuff like that. So it's going to take me out of the app a lot of times. This is very much a news and information consuming app. And I think it's a really well done one. I just don't know how many people will.
This feels like something that, if I, I wake up, 6:30 a.m. and I'm like, not quite ready to get out of bed yet. This would be a great thing to be like, okay, phone's on the nightstand. Let's see what's going on in the world. Just a little snapshot. I don't know, Nica, how do you use these tools?
I think this will be a great app for people who are lurkers, people who don't necessarily really engage on social media, but they want to know what's going on. So say we just recently had the Grammys the other night. There are some people who didn't watch them on TV and they just want to kind of see what was going on via the timeline. So it's that thing where they don't really want to engage or interact, but they just want to see what's going on. They want to laugh. They want to be informed. And they just kind of scroll through and kind of keep going. But I think where the issue comes in is if you want to engage with the post, you have to go to the original source. So the convenience of kind of having everything lined up in one place kind of goes out the window if you are a super user, a super engager, where you like a lot of things, you want to comment on everything that you see that is like interesting. Then this might cause a little bit of problem because like you have to exit the app to go into the actual app that you want to comment on. And if you have multiple streams, if you have Twitter, if you have Bluesky, and it's like, oh my God, this is a hassle. And if you're like me, I'm trying to release the hassle. Let's make it simple as possible for me.
And there are also a lot of people who are like, I just don't have that many accounts. You know, I check news in maybe I go to The Verge, or I have an RSS feed that I've already set up. This is not something that I need. I like this idea. I think it's great. I think it feels like at first glance, what's going on? That's a good way to, I don't know what's going on with the world. But when I get to my desktop, well, first of all, this doesn't have a desktop app, so that's not helpful. That's where I'm like, okay, now we're really cooking with gas. You know, this is where all my stuff is going on right in front of my face. But I like the idea of this, especially because it's trying to bring in what I think a lot of people are asking for. Not necessarily everybody on this panel, but a lot of people are asking for, like, okay, well, if I have all these accounts in various places, social networks used to be like Twitter and Facebook, and now it's all over the place. How do I get that all in one place? And I think that's what Iconfactory is going for.
I'm trying it out. And one thing they do is they kick you out to a web browser when you see your Mastodon or your Bluesky things. And then you get the web browser view where you can do the replying and hearting. So you don't have to leave the app. Exactly.
Yeah, it's a little clunky.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it definitely works.
That's better than I think you might imagine. If you're like, oh, okay, I just want to like this, you can. You just have to press. You have to press two buttons instead of one, but that's not as bad as having to like totally leave the app. Yeah.
I think there's definitely a market for this. I think they'll definitely find it's probably going to be more niche than widespread, but I definitely think they have a market for it.
It's for news consumers. People who use social media to consume news are going to like this. People like me that I use social media more to converse with people. I use OpenVibe, but that's not very good for the news consumption part of it, right? This is much better for that.
Yeah. Well, if anybody is using Tapestry or has thoughts about this, do send it our way. feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com.
Yeah, I just downloaded it. We'll see how it works.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, the onboarding process was easy for me. I'm always ready for a third-party app to shake things up a little bit before, the API host gets cut off.
And Twitterific was beloved, so, they're good at this.
Totally. Yeah. All right. Well, they're back, but in a different, wearing a different robe. All right. So the main reasons that people tend to give for cutting the cord, getting rid of cable TV, is that, it's too expensive and, I want more control. However, one of the arguments for keeping cable TV is I want sports. I want live events. an award show, for example, the Grammys type stuff. But we're getting more options, more and more, for streaming services that do not maybe everything, but the thing that you need. So, Tom, what's the latest?
Yeah, we talked previously about DirecTV offering a sports skinny bundle, 40 channels for $70. If you're like, I just want the sports stuff, and that is available online. Comcast has a skinny bundle also available online called Sports and News TV. That's $70, but it bundled the news in there. And this is becoming a trend. Fox Executive Chairman Lachlan Murdoch told analysts the company will finally get into mainstream paid streaming subscription this year with a service that he called modest, but containing content from Fox News and Fox Sports without incurring any additional rights costs. So you probably don't follow this as closely as I do because I also host the show Cord Killers, but Fox, what's left of Fox, it gets very confusing, right? Fox sold some of their stuff to Disney, but they kept the news, the broadcast stations, and the national Fox Sports channels. The only streaming services they have offered up until now have been Tubi, which is free and ad-supported, and then Fox Nation, which is very niche. It's very much a super fan. If you're a super fan of Fox News, then they'll try to get you to spend the $8 a month for Fox Nation. They haven't done a traditional, like, here is our version of Max or Peacock or Disney Plus. This isn't exactly that. They're still selling their shows to Hulu, frankly, is where you see a lot of Fox stuff show up. But the idea would be, we know people are canceling cable. We know that one of the things they want is live news and sports. We were very excited. They were very excited to do Venue, which would have given you live sports from not only Fox, but Disney and Warner as well. And that fell apart. So I think this is their alternative, is like, fine, we'll package these up so that if you're like, I really just want a live news channel, FS1, FS2, so I can get the sports and some of the other Fox Sports stuff, then here you go. And they didn't give a timeline or a price or anything about it. But it's the first time that Fox has talked about this sort of thing. Now, before the show, Nica was telling us you still have cable TV specifically because of these kinds of things, right? What is it that keeps you on cable?
I am still connected to the I'm still connected in. I still have the cord. I have not cut. It's convenience. I'm going to be honest. Cable is definitely more expensive, but I am here for the convenience. We already have all of the apps that are non-associated to a traditional cable company. Mm-hmm. So that's already enough. That's already a lot to manage, especially when you have smart TVs. If you log out of something or you haven't used it for a while, you have to scan the code, log back in, do all those types of things. And it's a lot. It gets a bit overwhelming. For me, I keep cable because it's easy. I don't have to worry about trying to catch the replay on the app or it's like it used to be. I don't know if they still do it, but it's like, watch it, the next day. I can just DVR it and it's saved. I can go and watch it at any time. And it's just one of those things where all the channels are there. I don't have to worry about keeping up with which app has this thing or this show that I'm looking for. I have to, trying to remember all those things. If I'm into a show and I want to record it, I just go and click the record button, record series, and it always, saves for me. And if I miss it when it actually airs, it's in a nice little neat location where I can go. And it's one of those things where for me, it's just convenience. I get the idea of the skinny bundle for sure. But for me, it's one of those things where you still have to keep up with what's
you have
there,
to keep
what's
up more,
here, what's
actually.
Yeah.
What about the DirecTV Now or YouTube TV or Hulu Live, where they are also like cable? They've got it all. They've got a DVR. You don't have to think about the channels. You don't have to be like, what's on Peacock? What's on this? They've got all the channels together. Have you looked at those?
No, I haven't. Because again, it's one of those things where it's still,
because it's working for you now.
It's working. It's convenient.
Yeah.
If things start to kind of break, then okay, I'll look into it. But now if I say, hey, you know what? I'm going to switch. I'm going to go to something. Then it's like, You got to call and cancel. They got to pick up the equipment. You have to,
it
takes work. All of your saved, things on your phone, or all the things saved, because like right now, like I have the package where it gives me like HBO and Showtime and all those like premium channels.
So you're not really like hunting around for anything. It's all there.
And if I do go to the app to watch something, I don't have to remember a password. I just log in with my cable provider's information. I just log in with my UFirst account, and it takes me right to it.
I'm sitting here chomping at the bit because I'm like, you can do all of that with DirecTV now. You can do all of that with YouTube Live or YouTube TV. I mean, and a few others, right?
Yes,
but you would have to go through the trouble to do it. And what's the motivation for you to want to go through the trouble? I guess saving a little money.
And prices are crawling up too.
I mean, and AT&T, they did try and get me to switch to Direct Now when I had something happened with my router or something, and they had to come and fix it. And the guy was like, "Well, I'll just get DirecTV now. You don't even have to have this box. We can give you an upgrade. It'll be faster. It'll be this. It'll be that." And then when I call them, to like say, "Hey, what is this?" The person I talked to wasn't very knowledgeable, and it was just like a bunch of, and I was like, oh God. I was like, you know what? Thank you for your time.
We've all been there on that customer service phone call where we're like, no, you don't. I think I've researched this way more than you have.
Right.
Just thank you for the information. Not helpful.
I love it when they tell you to call and buy something, and then you call and they're like, "We don't know what that is." That's
or they don't know how to explain it, and it's just I'm not asking super complex questions. It's just like tell me what this service does, and it's like a bunch of bumbling around. Now, probably the only thing that will get me to maybe switch to a DirecTV Now or a YouTube Live or something to that effect is if the cable does ratchet up so much. I'm like, you know what? This is insane. It's not worth the cost. But at the same time, the cost for these other services, they keep going up too. Everybody's going up. So it's like
they are generally cheaper than cable TV. But yeah, they're getting closer and closer.
The gap is closing. I would say, I don't know, when was it? Maybe, let's say like about 3 years ago, I said to my mom, who had DirecTV cable service, I was like, YouTube TV is like going to save you $50 a month. I mean, and she was like, well, no, but that's internet stuff. And I'm like, no, it's the same thing. Promise me. I already have that. This at my house. Like, this is the exact thing that you want in life. Let's just do this. And, so we did the whole thing. She's got Apple TVs in 5 different rooms, and that was like, I think when it was like $65. And now we're approaching what she paid for DirecTV in the first place. I'm not saying that YouTube TV is going to hike their prices up further, but I wouldn't be surprised either.
Well, the cable providers are also raising their prices at the same time. So there's
all the prices are rising equally.
Yeah. But I will have to say, with the cable companies, if you call and threaten to leave to go somewhere else, they mysteriously find a way to drop the price. So
they find you a discount. I used to do that.
It's like a credit card company where you're like, I think I might just transfer my account.
Hold on.
And they're like,
if you're taking the time to do that, why not take the time to just call and cancel and then set up something that you can turn on or off whenever you want without having to call in the future?
So see, I haven't done that, but I'm just saying they give you that option. One day I'm going to be a real adult and find ways to make sure I save money. But right now it's just like, it's exhausting.
Yeah, it's exhausting to think about. I totally hear you. Yeah. It is the way this stuff is going. And these skinny bundles are responding to people who are bailing, who are like, fine, you know what? I'm just done. I'm just not going to have cable. Like they're not even switching to DirecTV
they're
now.
Like, how about just a sports bundle?
Yeah. I just want to watch a few games and have some news. So,
right.
I think we want that's what you're seeing.
Some money instead of no money.
Yeah. Nobody wants the complication.
Right. They've reached the people who are at their limits. Like
they're
no
like,
more,
they're going to cancel anyway. So
right.
What if we throw an $8 a month service at you or something like that? But it is the way things are going. I mean, the trend is you're seeing the companies that own cable channels divesting themselves of them, trying to figure out what to do with them, consolidating them, shutting them down in a lot of cases for the really small ones. You know about Comcast is going to spin out most of their cable channels into a separate company so that the losses don't impact the Comcast bottom line. You're going to see the cable channels on cable and on the streaming versions of cable start to diminish, and more of that stuff's going to move over to streaming. So it's we're in that world of transition, right? It really reminds me of, my grandpa talking about, why would you pay for television? Like, I get everything I need on broadcast television. Why would I pay somebody and still have ads? I don't eventually we all made the move, but it was kind of rocky there for a while. Well, if you want to share your favorite way of streaming TV or talk about this with us or anybody else, you can join the conversation in our Discord. Just link up a Patreon account. Go to patreon.com/DTNS.
China could be the first country to see wide adoption of level 2 self-driving automobiles. Nica, I know you've been following the story. What have you seen lately?
In a story by the South China Morning Post, Zhang Yongwei, the General Secretary of China EV100, which is a non-governmental EV industry association, it stated that in 2025, 2 out of the 3 new cars sold in mainland China will feature SAE Level 2 self-driving capabilities. These will include models that sell for less than 100,000 yuan, which is about 14,000 USD, which is more of 13,914, but you get the point, 14,000. Also, BYD, the world's largest EV maker, has plans to build cars with ADAS, which is Advanced Driver Assistance Systems, also under that price point. Currently, most cars with ADAS in China are sold around 150,000 yuan. Now, I have to say, in a previous life, at a previous company, at a previous job, I was a senior engineer that worked directly in the ADAS space. And I have to say, if what this article is stating, and if what is really happening, it's a pretty huge accomplishment for them to have 2 out of 3 of their vehicles on level 2 ADAS. I have to say, I'm working hands-on with this, being really in the depth of this, that this is quite a big advancement. And if they follow suit, and especially at this price point, I think it could be a huge game changer.
I feel like the price point is that's. I think we all have the same thought here.
I mean, like,
the price is, it's like my car is level 2 right now, but I would have liked to pay quite a bit less for my car, to have these capabilities, and it doesn't mean that on level 2, like, everyone's just going to be like, ooh, let me take a nap in the car. Like, that's not what's going on. No. But it does mean that the cars are, far and beyond more autonomous.
I was trying to find a good number for outside of China, how common level 2 is, because I don't think there's a brand of car that doesn't offer some form of level 2 that you can opt into. It's whether you're going to have that lane assist or something like that. It's an add-on in a lot of cases. It also depends on how you define level 2. Technically, according to SAE, just lane assist qualifies as a level 2 system, but some people are like, no, you have to have multiple versions of that to actually call a car level 2. And that's when you talk about like Tesla self-drive, which is level 2. Level 2 means you have to pay attention. You can't like not pay attention, but the car can do a lot of things for you. And so I think we're like, depending on how you define it, 30 to 50% of cars outside of China are sold with level 2, at least when you're talking about Europe and the US. But that depends on the definition, and they're expensive. They're the top of the line level versus, what was this, $13,000? Like, that's where it starts to become, well, now,
that's still a lot of money, but when you're talking about cars, that's looking pretty attractive.
Right. And I think the term level 2 can be, in my opinion, a little bit diluted, because level 2 is, as you mentioned, it covers a lot of things. It can, on the low end, it can just be your simple maintaining your lane assist, or in the instances on the things that I work for, it's, the car getting on and off the interstate, with limited engagement from the actual driver, maneuvering around complex driving situations. So when you think of level 2, I know you're not supposed to use a level 2 plus nomenclature. That's not covered under SAE, but at the same time, the level 2s aren't the same across the different
Not
brands.
every level 2 is made the same.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It means different things.
Well,
I wonder
just
how
for
many
people.
of these 2 out of 3 are that level 2 plus side of things, and how many are like, well, it has lane assist, so we get to count it, right?
Yeah.
We don't know that either.
I had a question for you, Nica. Like, how much of the roads play into the development of the technology? For example, if the government spends a good deal of money on like making certain sets of roads, like with highly identifiable markers and stuff for the systems to work, does that ease that transition? Does it make it more functional?
It makes
in that
it
case?
Yeah, it does, and it makes it more complex. The company that I work for, we had 2 versions of L2. The version that is out in production now that people are using, but there are very limited situations where you can use this driver assist, this ADAS this ADAS technology. On the system, the program that I was working on, this level 2 would work on any paved road in the US and in Canada. So whether it's the interstate or whether it's your single lane, street in the middle of your subdivision, if it's kind of like a little side road, if it was a paved road, this vehicle would know how to navigate it and know how to drive on it. So that's where the complexity comes in, is what type of road is the vehicle expected to drive on? And that is what really is the delineation, because there's a huge difference between a subdivision road and a 5-lane interstate. I'm not sure what street any of you live on, but I think it's a huge difference from a residential street to, say, the 405 or
Yes,
here
quite
in
a bit.
Atlanta.
Very glad I don't live on the 405.
my street in front of my house compared to I-285. It's one of those things. It's a lot of difference, because a lot of times in these vehicles, when you're doing the development for these, when you're creating the algorithms for these, there are things you have to take into consideration, because you have to think of, when you get into this vehicle and you engage your driver assist, it's kind of taking on you as a person when you're driving. If you have to think about, whether it's a dotted line or a solid line, it's a double lane, it's the double line, the boundary on the side, there's a guardrail, if there's a crosswalk, all these things have to play into it. It has to recognize the stop sign or the traffic light or the, railroad crossing. So it really depends. Again, all level 2s aren't the same. They aren't created equal. So you have to, be fully and cognizant and aware of what type of version of this L2 that whatever, company or manufacturer you're using has this engaged. Because I can tell you, the work that I did, the team that I led, this was highly complex work. It was a lot of, make it, create it, it works. Okay, make it better. It was a lot of iterating over it time and time again, because it's one of those things where you have to continuously innovate on it and create it, because you have to think of the human convention. There are people who they're just regular drivers. They don't have an ADAS system in their vehicle. So you have to be able to maneuver ADAS and non-ADAS vehicles all in the same arena. So that's where it gets a little bit complex. And that's why I said, depending on the level 2 capabilities that these vehicles are having, to have 2 out of 3 cars on the road with this engaged is really, like I said, depending on the level of capability that they're using, it really is a huge thing. And then you throw in the price point, that makes it even.
Even if they're all just lane assist at that price point, that would still be impressive. And obviously, some of them are more advanced than that.
Right.
On the other hand, though, I do think this is a little bit of propaganda to kind of make it sound even better. I think it's good, but I think they're trying to, stretch it and make it sound even better than it is, because we're not talking about level 3, and Europe has already got level 3 cars available that you can drive on the road from Mercedes. And I think there's one for sale in the US, or at least coming soon in the US this year. Level 3 is where you don't have to look at the road. That the car, as long as it's in conditions and areas that it can handle, will drive itself. And you just have to be available. You have to be present. You still have to have a steering wheel. You still have to have pedals, so that if it says, hey, I can't drive anymore, I'm going to come to a stop unless you take over, you can take over. And to me, level 3 is where it's at. Like, that's still going to be very expensive for a long time. But we are starting to see those. And I didn't see anything about that in this story.
I mean, conceivably, if they produce enough of these cars, the core systems that they use for the level 2, the prices for those should drop as well, right? Because you're just churning these out. That could widen the availability of the technology to more models outside. I mean,
well, you also have
if
competitors who are like, oh, well, if somebody's only paying $13,000 for this, then let's also offer it.
It was interesting. BYD doesn't even make the top 5 in domestic sales for EVs in China because they sell so many outside of China in addition to the ones in China. They are truly a global brand, except you won't be getting them in the US anytime soon.
They say competition is good for the consumer. So hopefully it benefits all of us who buy vehicles.
Let's hope. Let's hope. All right, moving on. Contracts, something that adults who buy cars also have to deal with. You always have to sign something every once in a while. There's always, as an adult, a deal to have here and there. But Roger, Adobe is trying to save us.
Yes, Adobe is adding a new contract intelligence feature to its Acrobat AI assistant. The $4.99 a month add-on will let free or paid individual users of Acrobat use the chatbot feature that allows them to surface key terms and dates, generate citations, summaries, and recommend questions in contracts. So if you get like a mortgage contract, it can highlight all those things you should probably be notified of, and anything you might have a question about, like what do these terms mean, or like, is the payment at the end of the month, beginning of the month, or whatever. The update is available worldwide today across desktop, web, mobile. It is currently only available for English right now, but Adobe plans to add more languages in the near future. Now, Adobe, interestingly enough, cited its own survey, which came from last month of January 2025, that found 69% of consumers, I am probably one of them, had signed agreements without knowing all the terms within them. And if anyone's ever
69%?
Yeah, I think the number's probably higher.
It's probably higher than that.
I'm like, yes, I agree. Are you sure you agree? Yes, I agree.
I mean, that doesn't count terms of service. It's This is just signed agreements, because if it was terms of service, it goes to 100%. I'm just going to say that.
If you ever dealt with a mortgage, just like, is this a phone book or or is this my final documents? And you sign like 20 some odd times. But I thought it was really interesting because initially when I read this story, I thought like, well, I guess maybe like if you're not a lawyer, maybe it's flagging the wrong things. You won't know. But then I thought about, you know what? There are things I should probably get flagged, and it's not like I won't eventually turn to an attorney or whatever to help me out, but at least I know what I'm looking at, because if it's a document I've not seen before, I've seen like 4 or 5 mortgage documents, so I'm sort of familiar now what I should be looking at, but for things I've never seen before, this could be very helpful. And I think on that note, I would actually consider using this or something very similar to it, at least so I know what I should be paying attention to, instead of just like, oh, this is where I signed, so I should just look at this portion and sort of just glaze over the rest of it.
This feels like, I mean, I don't have a mortgage, so I don't have those documents, but I'm a renter, so I do move around a fair amount. This would be helpful for that. just to kind of flag things where it's like, oh yeah, I should have seen this, or I should have signed this type thing. Taxes also, depending on, how you file your taxes, this could be helpful for that as well.
And one of the things I noticed is that it when the summaries, it kind of gives you, or at least Adobe says it will give you a very sort of straightforward explanation. So if there's a lot of jargon in there, which can be very intimidating if you're not familiar with it, it can really throw you off because you don't know, for example, Melrose, am I paying that? What is that? How's that separate from my property taxes that gets tacked on and all the rest? It does. I mean, I had my attorney explain that to me, but like if you can just do it offhand, like as a sidebar, so at least as I go through the contract, you can highlight and flag things and explain it to me in a way that I would understand outside of like the real estate business. It would save me a lot of headaches, or at least concerns.
Will this work on terms of service? Because like if I open a terms of service in a PDF in Acrobat, people don't usually do that, but I guess I could. It could be helpful for that too, to just flag things and like, oh, what's the privacy policy here? Like I see this less as it interpreting and preventing anything bad and more of a, like you said, like being a consultant to point out, oh, this is different than the previous version. This is what changed. This is unusual. You don't see this a lot. And letting you ask questions, letting you say like, how does this affect my monthly payment or whatever, right? Doing the like at least surfacing questions, like helpful questions that you might want to ask, super helpful because sometimes you don't know if you should be asking anything about this part because again, you're not familiar with that jargon or you're not familiar with that chunk of legalese, and it's just like, yeah, I guess, do I just sign? And what's the market for this though? If you already pay for ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or one of the others though, like this is only doing this in Acrobat versus you could do exactly the same thing with any of these other things that you pay. Yes, you pay $20 a month, but they can do everything. It's
that was one of the things I was thinking is like, why can't you just pump this into another chatbot or agent?
Yeah.
And the easiest thing I come with is a lot of the documents I used to receive, for me in my case, came as PDFs. So it would be a very simple matter just to open it up in the app. And
I guess it's on device, but you have to use Acrobat. I don't use Acrobat. I don't know if anybody else does, but
and I think that's probably the key factor here is that this is kind of a way to funnel people back to Adobe. I mean, I remember Adobe used to be the standard. I remember, back in the day when you got your Photoshop on a CD and you owned it. It was yours to keep forever. You didn't ever have to give it up. And then we went over to this subscription based model, this cloud version.
Creative
Cloud, I'm a little I'm a little gun shy of Adobe products because of Creative Cloud. One, the subscription fee was insane, and the effort it took for me to get to end the subscription, and the other thing to get the Creative Cloud off of my machine, which I was never able to do, even though I did all the things. So I'm a little bit gun shy for that. But it sounds to me is that it's one of those things where before Adobe Acrobat used to be the default reader for any PDFs, and it kind of
the only one
into
at one point.
Right, and it forced you into it. And I kind of see this as one, I think the technology behind it is more kind of like a guide. You can use it as a guide to understanding the contract. And two, it seems to me it's like forcing people back to Adobe because they've taken a bit of a hit lately, especially with the stuff with the subscriptions and the AI and who owns what, and people are really kind of skittish. I think this may be a way of them kind of forcing people.
It's interesting you bring that up because for anyone who really isn't in the creative space and doesn't really need the Photoshop, the Premiere or whatever, really no reason to use any Adobe product, right? And as you used to say, Adobe Acrobat Reader was the default until they bloated it up like 15 years ago. Yep. What's interesting is that BioCow mentioned, and this is something totally spaced my mind, that Chrome has a built-in PDF reader, and he uses just that. If Chrome or Google combine that with Gemini and do the same feature, so you could get an email with a contract or whatever.
You could do that right now in Chrome. Absolutely. That's already there. You got to pay for Gemini to do it, right? You could do that.
Flag all the legal stuff where it is just a one-click.
Yeah, you could do that today.
And it's not just the one use, because it sounds like for this, it's only for contracts. And if you can use this built in Gemini, you can use Gemini for whatever you want.
The advantage to this, I think, is that it's on device, maybe. That would be an advantage if it was. Or if it's going to Adobe, though, then it's like, well, do you trust Adobe or Google with your contracts?
Right.
Like that becomes an issue.
But I mean,
did you find out what the privacy implications are in this?
No, there wasn't too much information on their site regarding exactly where it was processed.
They're like, it's private.
It's interesting because one of the things I thought was maybe not so much using Adobe's version, but if you could get a localized agentic AI running on your PC or on device and do it for you, I think that would go a long way to assuaging a lot of privacy concerns, but also just making sure that, like, hey, whatever document you're signing stays within the confines of your control.
This almost feels like our cable conversation from a few minutes ago. I know it's different, right? But it's like, Nica, you were like, convenience. It just, maybe I'm paying a little bit more, but I kind of have everything in one place. I feel like Adobe Creative Suite and others like it are doing the same thing. And I use Creative Cloud for a variety of things. I also recently had to do something with Illustrator, and I was like, I don't want to pay for Illustrator. Like, LibreOffice is probably going to work fine, which it does. And we have options.
So I'm looking at the Adobe page for Acrobat AI Assistant, and it just links to the Firefly privacy policy. So it's the same privacy policy that they use for all of the AI tools across Adobe, which is they're not going to train off your data, they're not going to share it with third parties, and all of that. So it's decent. It's a decent privacy policy.
Firefly is actually pretty good. I've used it a number of times, and I will say this about Creative Cloud. They do update the features regularly enough that it does make, at least for me, worth paying for because I use it for the show. But if you're
already in Creative Cloud and already using Acrobat, maybe you'll plunk down $5 for this. But I don't think it's going to swing anybody back to Acrobat.
And that, to me, that's the hardest pill to swallow. Why are you nickel and diming $5 a month if someone's already in Creative Suite and they're already paying?
If you're already there, just do it as
and then you're already using the same back end. So why not just not be such a miser about it?
Again, like you said, nickel and diming you. They got to squeeze everything.
But I do really like that idea of just having something that is very just short and sweet. Boom.
Yeah, you should just start using free tools. You can use free tools for that, and just go to ChatGPT or something or Claude and just ask them, like, hey, look at this. Like, you don't have to pay Adobe to do it. I guess.
No, I know. I do share your concerns. I prefer it on device, and I think that's just me.
And maybe that's the $5 value on.
Well, you're not getting it on device with Adobe either.
Yeah.
So.
Oh well, scratch that.
Well, what you are hopefully getting the next time you hang out at a new hotel is free Wi-Fi. Doesn't always happen, but more and more it does. If so, Chris Christensen has a tip for you.
This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler with another Tech in Travel Minute. Here's something that I learned on my recent trip to Dubai that I just got back from, to try when you're having trouble getting into the hotel Wi-Fi. I had a situation where the hotel had captive Wi-Fi, where it pops up that dialogue, where you're supposed to put in your room number and your password or something like that, but it wouldn't pop up on my laptop. And it turns out that some hotel Wi-Fi systems won't work if you're using custom DNS. And so you may need to go into your settings for your network and take out custom DNS settings that you may be using, like the Google DNS, as some of you use, as I was using, and let it default to the hotel DNS. If you try that, you may find that you can connect. This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler.
they just want to be able to track all your browsing. Why are you using a custom DTNS? Change it.
The nerve.
Just let them know your whereabouts. Then you
And
what you're doing.
Daryl weighed in on our discussion about not using AI in job applications. We were talking about the fact that both Anthropic and NVIDIA have some language when you're applying saying, in the application process, please don't use AI. We want to know your thoughts. Daryl says, we've been having issues with people using AI during IT interviews. When we have interviews via Teams or Zoom, we have to watch the applicant's eyes and hands when asking them questions. Oddly enough, we have to throw in questions that can only be answered if the applicant had been programming for more than a decade, or we add a question that has nothing to do with IT, medical, policing, gardening, but sounds like it does if you look it up on ChatGPT or Gemini, which will try to make it shoehorn into IT. I want to know what I know you can't tell me because then everyone would know and it wouldn't work, but I really am curious what some of these medical, policing, or gardening questions are. I guess it's root. It would be a gardening term that would apply to IT, but also gardening.
This reminds me of the Blade Runner VoIP contest they used to
Determine
filter out the replicants.
As a person who has interviewed recently and had to take technical exams or interviews, and I've interviewed with both NVIDIA and Anthropic, and I can confirm that they do specify that you cannot, and they list them out because it's like, you're not going to catch us by, if we didn't say this particular program. They list it out, and it basically says that if they catch you using these during one of their interviews, that you're basically booted out.
Yeah, they're not going to hire you.
And they're not going to hire you or even, allow you to even come back into the pipeline to interview. And so it's one of those things where it's interesting, where when you are applying to some of these places and jobs, especially if you're in the tech space, it'll tell you when you're, doing the application, check this checkbox if it's okay for you to be interviewed by AI. And I'm like, well, that's a bit hypocritical. You want to be able to use AI to interview people, but you don't want people to use AI to
get the job.
Especially when in a lot of these roles, especially in tech, you use AI tools to actually do the job. And the other thing is, people, I think, get the misconception around using some of these tools. You have to know what to ask.
Yeah.
You have to know how to prompt. So you have to have some level of, say, if you're a software engineer and you're doing one of these interviews, to be able to effectively use these Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude, whatever, you have to know what to ask to get the response back. And a lot of times these technical interviews and these questions, they are now built to be able to not use these tools to get the answer. So you have to know the questions to ask the prompt to give you an actual response back that doesn't make you seem like an idiot.
Yeah,
so
that should be part of that should be part of the application process. Is okay. Now I want you to use AI
instead of fighting it. Right. Instead
Yeah.
of fighting it, embrace it, and use it to be able to suss out the competency of people who you want to hire.
I think it's a little like saying you can't use the calculator on this math test. We'll let you use the calculator eventually when you move on to higher concepts, but we want you to show that you know the concept before we start letting you use the calculator on the math test. I think this is that, which is like, we're going to let you use AI and we may test you later on in the process to see if you're good at it. But to start with, we want to know you have the basics and it's not that you're just looking them up and you don't know. And I think that's fair, right?
I can see that. And I can see how people would take advantage of the technology. And I guess companies have to do that because people will use whatever to their advantage to kind of get in. But at the same time, I think more often than not, they are doing a disservice to probably 90% of the people who would go about this the right way. But it's like the the small segment of people kind of ruin it for everybody else, so to speak. So it's one of those things where, again, if you're using these tools, you need to know, you have to have the level of competency to be able to ask it to give you the response that not only you're expecting, but your interviewer is expecting as well. So it's kind of one of those things where it's kind of hard. It's definitely a balancing act, because you want to make sure you're hiring someone who knows what they're doing, and not just looking for this tool to give them the answer. But at the same time, you're probably also missing out on a lot of great talent, because you're completely cutting out something that everybody uses.
I doubt that they're cutting it out. I imagine that they will ask you, like, okay, we are now giving you permission to use it. Show us how you use it later on in some cases, or at least they should.
In some cases, I haven't had that experience.
Yeah, you haven't. You've been out there, so yeah.
It's like, no, can't use it. If we catch you using it, bad you, you're going to get in trouble. You got to go to the principal's office.
Yeah. Well, folks,
say.
If you've got more stories about this, and there's a bunch of people sharing stories in our chat room right now, send them to us, feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com.
Nica Montford, thank you so much for just bringing the knowledge, as you always do, to each episode. Let folks know what you're doing these days outside of our episodes here.
Sure. You can find me at Tech Savvy Diva on pretty much every social media app there is. Also, I co-host a tech podcast, Apple Focus, the Sanaba West Show, where we talk all things Apple and then some, which I co-host with Terrence Gaines. I'm sure the DTNS community is familiar with him as well. You can definitely check us out. Our new episodes launch every Friday.
At snoboscast.com.
Go check it out. You can also be one of the people who names our show. We take title suggestions in our Discord, Twitch chat, and at dtns.showbot.tv during our live stream every day at 4 p.m. Eastern. Top vote getter right now is Zoe Brings Bacon. Not every level 2 is made the same. Followed very closely by X1011. It belongs in a museum. We also have Saving Money is Tiring from GPEG84. The Skinny on Bundles. Hey, I like that one still.
Hey, that's fun. I like that one.
Yeah. Batfink 2001, Taking Driver Assistance to New Levels.
Get it? Yeah.
And then Zoe Brings Bacon, parodying my grandpa Carl. Why would you pay for television?
Why in the heck?
Sarah, what did we go with?
We went with Batfink's Taking Driver Assistance to New Levels.
Thank you, Sean. That's his real name.
Yeah.
Also, big thanks to everyone who supports us.
Tom.
I know. It's like I told you who Batman was. It's Bruce Wayne. Thank you to Laminar.
It is?
That rich boy.
Thank you to Laminar Rainbow for the super sticker earlier on. And I mentioned it when David did it for the super chat as well. Thanks to everybody supporting us on LinkedIn and Twitch. We got PC Milesy giving us 20 bits 10 minutes ago. Brian Sisme. Brian C is me. Oh, Brian C is me. Followed us. Lemon Lee resubscribed at tier 1 for the 67th month. We also get bits from Zoe and Technomensch. Razin resubscribed for the 38th month. Thanks everybody for supporting us in all the various ways. And big thanks to those on Patreon that gave us a raise. We've had a lot of people raising their Patreon subscription lately. Thank you, Jason, Sebastian, Jens, Ghost, Benoit, Matthew, Damien, and C. All of them gave us a raise on Patreon. Thank you so much. We very much appreciate it.
We sure do. If you are a DTNS supporter, and if you're listening to this, hopefully you are, we would love for you to show your support for us. We have good stuff at dailytechnewsshow.com/store. For example, a mug, a t-shirt, maybe a mouse pad. It all has our new DTNS Live logo, which we're all very, very fond of. They're great looking ways to support the show and us, and a great way to say, no, this is my coffee mug, only for me. Do not touch my mug.
We got a poster. Roger wanted us to sell a poster, so we put a poster up. If anybody was interested in a poster, go check it out, dailytechnewsshow.com/store.
Posters are also there as well.
Posters now available.
Yeah. Man, if you buy a poster, put it up on your wall, please take a photo and send it to us.
Yes,
Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. We want to see it. That would be so cool. Reminder, you can watch us live Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. That is 2100 UTC, and you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. We're back doing it all again tomorrow with Scott Johnson talking about the Video Game History Foundation's release of all sorts of stuff. Magazines, promotional material, and a lot more. Hope to see you tomorrow.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.